On to week 13 now of the regular season. Playoffs quickly approaching, but first things first, let's try to take advantage of these final few weeks of the season. Starting right here and right now, 3 games I'll be involved in this week 13. Let's get right to them. Starting in Green Bay, where the Houston Texans travel to play the Green Bay Packers. Packers a 6.5-point favorite at BetSafe, 45.5 the total in this game. Now Green Bay, a much-needed win last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. They had lost 4 straight games. Their season was teetering on the brink. They're now 5-6 after beating the Eagles, still with a pulse there in the NFC North, but this a must-win situation for them. It's an important game for the Texans as well. They're 6-5, clinging to first place in the AFC South, and the Texans have been struggling lately. They've lost 2 straight games, 3 of their past 5. They haven't been good at all on the road this season, just 1-4 on the road. And the problem has been their offense. The problem's been their offense all season. There's been a lot of talk about quarterback Brock Osweiler. They threw a lot of money at him in the offseason, and his production hasn't been any better than what they had last year. The revolving door of Brian Hoyer and Ryan Mallett, etc. The Texans in these past 5 games, we mentioned they've lost 3 of 5. They've scored 24 or fewer in every game. Now, fortunately for them, they're facing a Packers team that's really had problems on defense, especially in the secondary. So you'd think the Texans would be able to get something going on offense in this game, but is it going to be enough? Because this Green Bay offense has awakened. Now, there was a lot of talk early in the season about, well, what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense, and that talk was justified. But you look at Rodgers' first 5 games, his yardage totals in his first 5 games, those make up 5 of his 6 lowest yardage totals of the season. I mean, he has just been on fire of late. 30 of 39 for 313 yards in that win over the Eagles. And he's thrown for 297 yards or more in 5 of his last 6 games. The Packers scoring 24 or more in each of those games. So this Green Bay offense, even though they're one-dimensional, they don't run the ball very well, they are very much alive and kicking, and I do think they're going to have success against the Texans on Sunday, and I just don't think this Texans offense is going to be able to keep up. As we mentioned, the Texans have not been good on the road this season, just 1-4. I don't think they're going to be able to keep it particularly close in Green Bay. I like the Packers to cover the 6.5-point number. Moving on now to Jacksonville, where the lowly Jags host the Denver Broncos. Denver, a 5-point favorite at BetSafe, 41.5. The total in this game. Now the Jags just 2-9 on the season, but a little secret, they have been playing hard. This team still playing hard for Gus Bradley, who is essentially a lame duck coach at this point. But, you know, every week it seems like the Jags play the opponent tough. It's just not quite good enough. I mean, you look at this team, 8 of 11 games this season have been decided by a touchdown or less, and they've been especially competitive at home. They beat Indianapolis earlier this year at home. They lost to Green Bay by just 4, Baltimore by just 2, Houston by just 3. It's been the defense that has been keeping things afloat in Jacksonville. The Jags, 6th in the NFL in total defense. They're especially good in the secondary, 3rd in passing defense. And they're facing a Denver offense that has pretty much flatlined here over the past several weeks. The Broncos just not very good on the offensive side of the ball, just 20th in the league in total offense, 23rd in pass yards per game. Trevor Siemian producing just 238 yards per game through the air. That's not very good considering the weapons he has, guys like Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And we mentioned the Jaguars 3rd in the NFL against the pass, so going to be interesting to see if the Denver offense is going to be able to move in this game. I think they're going to have problems in that regard. Now this Denver defense is very good, and they'll be looking to force the Jaguars offense into mistakes. But Blake Bortles has shown some signs lately since the change of offensive coordinators. Nathaniel Hackett now calling the plays in Jacksonville. Last week in Buffalo, Bortles played a clean game, ran the ball a little bit more, a season-high 81 rushing yards. You can tell in Jacksonville they're trying to be a little less reckless on the offensive side of the ball, and they do have some talent. I mean, you look at their wide receiver position, people like Allen Robinson, Marquise Lee, so they can hurt you. I mean, the ability is there. Now, look, I'm not going to stand here and preach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I guarantee you can count on one hand the times I've bet on the Jaguars in the past 5 years. But I do think they're going to give Denver a game this Sunday. This Broncos team is floundering lately. They've lost 2 of their last 3 games. Going on the road here, think they win this game, but think it's probably very close. I like Jacksonville +5. Moving on now, the final game I like in this Week 13. What about the New Orleans Saints at home against the Detroit Lions? Saints a 5.5-point favorite at BetSafe, 53.5 the total here. And boy, this Saints offense is rolling. Number 1 in the NFL in total offense, number 1 in pass yards per game, number 2 in points per game. They're averaging 30.4 points per game, and they're even better at home in the Superdome. 34 points per game for the Saints in the Superdome this season. Last Sunday, they hung 49 on the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, Detroit is okay, but just okay on the defensive side of the ball. Middle of the road, 15th in the NFL in both yards allowed and points allowed. How are they going to hold down this New Orleans defense? I mean, you look at the games the Saints have played this season, really the only times they've been limited at all have been against great defenses like Denver, where they only scored 23, Seattle, where they only scored 25. They did beat the Seahawks. But literally every other game, this team has been up in the 30s or 40s. As we mentioned, number 1 in the NFL in total offense. Are the Lions going to be able to keep up? I know the Lions just keep on winning, but this could be sort of a smoke and mirrors show. I mean, their last 5 games, they're producing just 19.4 points per game. And we keep on repeating this stat, but it happened again last week. I mean, we're going to keep repeating it because it's an amazing stat. The Lions are 7-4 this year. 7-4, but they have trailed in the fourth quarter of all 11 of their games. I mean, it's incredible they've won 7 games, having trailed in the fourth quarter in all 11 games. And, you know, I know they keep pulling a lot of these games out, but I wouldn't be very comforted if I were a Lions fan. They keep on falling behind in the fourth quarter. Are they going to be able to pull the rabbit out of the hat again on the road against this Saints team that badly needs to win? The Saints 2 games back in the NFC South. Big win last week over the Rams, but they badly need this one. Playing at home, just really clicking on offense. And you know what? Even though the defense certainly not great in New Orleans, they've quietly played better here these last few weeks. They've held 5 straight opponents to 25 points or fewer. That might not sound like much, but remember back in the first month of the season when the Saints were losing these shootouts, losing to teams like the Raiders and Falcons despite scoring over 30 points themselves. So the defense has improved in New Orleans. The offense, the best in the NFL right now. I think the Saints cover 5.5 against Detroit on Sunday. There you have it. Those are my thoughts for this Week 13. I wish you best of luck, whatever you decide to do, just so long as your interests don't conflict with my interests. For BetSafe, I'm John Arnette.